Good morning and a very warm welcome to our honorable invited guests, distinguished speakers, respected presenters, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome everyone to MAHSA International Conference on Health Science and Technology, MICHES 2021. This conference is proudly organized by the Faculty of Health Sciences, MAHSA University. On behalf of organizing committee, I would like to thank each one of you for your participation and presence at this conference. I am Sonia Diwan, a lecturer in the Faculty of Health Sciences, and I will be your host for this opening session. Ladies and gentlemen, MICHES 2021 aims to bring researchers, members of academia, industrial professionals from all over the world to share their experiences on technological advancements in various fields of health sciences, particularly environmental health, physiotherapy, and medical imaging. It serves as a platform for researchers, educators, and students to present and discuss the most recent developments, innovations, practical challenges, and solutions in health sciences. The theme of the conference is Moving Health Sciences Forward, IR 4.0. To begin, we would like to acknowledge our honorary patron for this conference, Professor Tantri Dato, Dr. Haji Muhammad Hanifa bin Haji Abdullah, Executive Chairman, MAHSA Group, and our Chief Patron, Dato Dr. Sharil bin Professor Tantri Dato, Dr. Haji Muhammad, Managing Group Director, MAHSA Group, without whose support this conference would not be possible. We are pleased to have with us this morning Yangbar Bahagya, Professor Dato Dr. Ikram Shah bin Ismail, Vice Chancellor of MAHSA University, Professor Shri Kumar Chakravarti, Director of Research, Innovation and Enterprise, Associate Prof. Dr. Veronica Chua, Dean, Faculty of Health Sciences, Mr. Puad bin Mayon, Conference Chair, Mr. Rama Krishnan, Conference Co-Chair, Faculty Deans, MAHSA Director, and respected guests. Dear audience, I would like to call upon Mr. Muhammad Al-Kausar for recitation of Dua. Welcome, Mr. Muhammad Al-Kausar.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most kind. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad, ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma antas salam, wa minkas salam, wa ilayka ya'udus salam, fahayyina Rabbana bis salam. Ya salamus sallimna ajma'in waj'al min ibadika salihin. Allahumma ya Allah, on this glorious day, in conjunction with the opening ceremony of MAHSA International Conference on Health Science and Technology, MICHES 2021, we uphold our hands to pray gratefully to thank on your infinite favor to us till we can live in peace and harmony to perform our task as your servants. O Allah, we ask your blessing to make this occasion in success. Allahumma ya hayyu ya qayyum ya zal jalali wal ikram. You are the mercy of the mercious and you are the Lord of the universe. Give us mercy from your presence and shape for us right conduct in our plight. We ask you for knowledge which is beneficial and sustenance which is good and deeds which are acceptable. O Allah, help us to remember you, to thank you, and to worship you in the best of manners. Forgive us, have mercy upon us, guide us, give us health and grant us sustenance. O Allah, show us guidance and adjust our paths and ways to achieve happiness and glory. Let us listen to people who like the good things. Let us avoid doing the bad and evil things. O Allah, bless our life in this meeting and gathering and prevent us from harm and unfortunate event. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Al Kausar. Moving on, it gives me a great pleasure to invite our beloved Dean, Faculty of Health Sciences, MAHSA University, who is also a Senior Director Academic of MAHSA University, Associate Professor Dr. Veronica Chua, to deliver her welcome address. Please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Veronica.
Thank you, Madam Sonia. Our Honorable Patron, Yang Berbahagia Professor Tan Sri Datuk Dr. Haji Muhammad Hanifah bin Haji Abdullah, Executive Chairman of MAHSA Group, Chief Patron, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Syaril bin Professor Tan Sri Datuk Dr. Haji Muhammad Hanifah bin Haji Abdullah, Group Managing Director, MAHSA Group, Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Ikram Shah bin Ismail, Vice Chancellor of MAHSA University, Professor Dr. Sri Kumar Chakravarti, Director Research, Innovation and Enterprise of MAHSA University, Faculty Deans and Director of MAHSA Universities, our distinguished keynote speakers, plenary speakers, presenters, participants, organizing committee, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to MAHSA International Conference on Health Sciences and Technology, MAHSA 2021, organized by the Faculty of Health Sciences, MAHSA University. To our speakers and participants who are joining us from different time zones, such as Mr. Narendra, one of the plenary speakers who joined us from Microsoft headquarters in Washington, USA, where it is now a dinner time. Good evening. By the way, Mr. Narendra is a Principal Software Engineering Manager at Microsoft, and he specializes in machine learning and Microsoft Azure. For those who are unfamiliar, Azure is a public cloud computing service offering many machine learning options that don't require deep knowledge of AI, machine learning theory, or a team of data scientists. It is being increasingly used in healthcare nowadays. The theme of this conference is moving health sciences forward in IR 4.0. As we know, the first industrial revolution involved the use of machines for work processes, while second industrial revolution involved electrification, and the third industrial revolution was related to computerization and automation. And now we are at the fourth industrial revolution, which involves smart and autonomous systems powered by data and machine learning. Traditionally, health sciences, information technology, and engineering were all distinct disciplines, and professionals from one field knew almost nothing about the other. However, as each discipline developed, these distinct disciplines began to interact and affect each other. As a result, new overlapping fields such as biomedical engineering, health informatics, and digital radiology emerged to take health sciences into a new era of significantly improved health outcomes at the turn of the millennium. Now, we are in the IR 4.0 era, where health sciences is being reshaped once again by newer technologies. Research work, scientific publication, and colloquium are central to chart the way forward. So what lies ahead for health sciences? This is what MAHSA 2021 aims to shed light on. MAHSA University is proud to host MAHSA 2021 as a platform for researchers, academicians, practitioners, and students from various fields of health sciences and related technologies to come together and share knowledge mainly through research presentations. I trust this conference will also enable the students of MAHSA University to obtain valuable insights into the last trends and advancement in health sciences and its related technology, as well as gain a better understanding of health science research. As the Faculty of Health Sciences in MAHSA University currently has 3 departments, that is, Department of Physiotherapy, Department of Medical Imaging, and Department of Environmental Health and Safety. We have divided this conference into 3 corresponding breakout sessions. Please do join your chosen track after this opening ceremony by using the login credentials sent to you by the committee. We will then meet here at 4:45 p.m. all together for the closing ceremony. For the keynote speaker sessions that will follow after this opening, we will hear an international renowned professor of environmental health who was attached with the United Nations University speak about Internet of Things in environmental health. A medical physicist who has made a name for himself in Australia for his research in radiotherapy will talk about artificial intelligence and cancer. And a senior physiotherapist who happens to be the current president of Malaysian Association of Physiotherapists will share about wearable sensors such as gyroscopes in stroke rehabilitation. We are privileged to have an equally impressive lineup of plenary speakers and participants with a wide range of expertise, so I look forward to a vibrant and inspiring exchange of knowledge that benefits everyone. A huge thanks to all the speakers for their invaluable participation at this conference. Last but not least, I would like to thank the organizing committee made up of staff from the Faculty of Health Sciences for their hard work and dedication in organizing this conference. Well done, team. In closing, I wish all the participants of MAHSA International Conference on Health Science and Technology 2021 an enjoyable and successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Veronica. I would like to now invite Professor Dr. Shri Kumar Chakravarti, Director, Research, Innovation and Enterprise, MAHSA University, to deliver his opening speech. Please welcome Professor Dr. Shri Kumar Chakravarti.
Thank you, Ms. Sonia. I hope you can hear me. Respected Tansri, Dato Dr. Sharil Group Managing Director, respected Vice Chancellor, Professor Veronica, and members of the organizing committee, and all the participants today. Now, today is yet another major conference run by MAHSA University, and this conference today focus is on IR 4.0 in healthcare systems. Now, as much as we have numerous speakers speaking today regarding IR 4.0 and the healthcare system, my focus today is going to be on something else, where maybe just as a form of visualization for us in the morning, let us all close our eyes and focus on something else. Elephants in Africa. Yes, elephants in Africa. In one of the TV shows in National Geographic, Sir David Attenborough had gone to Africa, and while he was going there to shoot some of his events, some of his National Geographic videos, he saw that there were huge elephants standing in herds, and each elephant was tied by just a small rope in the leg. So he was actually really amazed, because these are huge elephants and they're not even moving, because if they could make an attempt to break the rope, they would set themselves free, but they're not doing that. So out of curiosity, he asked the elephant trainer standing there that why are they not doing this? So the trainer said that actually right from when these elephants are small and young, we use the same size rope to tie them, to tie their leg and hold them. So at that time, they could never move. So as they grow up, they are conditioned to believe that they cannot break away. So as much as they can break away now, it's very easy. They do not, because their mind is conditioned to believe that they cannot break away. Well, the same thing is with the human mind. As much as our human brain consists of about 1 billion neurons, which is 1 trillion connections, we call it synapses, which is about 1 million, when you translate it to gigabytes, 1 million gigabytes. As much as we have so much of thought in our brain, our mind gets conditioned just like the elephants. The elephants are denied the freedom of mind because the mind gets conditioned that they cannot break the rope. They are tuned to that thought. The same thing, when our mind receives some information about IR 4.0, the first thing that we are tuned to is that all media says IR 4.0 says 800 million jobs will be lost by 2030. By 2022, 30 to 50% of the workforce will be lost. And all these are reports. The World Economic Forum in 2020 said that many of us would lose our jobs. So our natural response is a response to media, because media is what we see every time. We always have our mobile phones. So our natural response, if you Google again media, most of the people are scared of IR 4.0 and the developments. I mean, that is because our mind is conditioned that when this comes, we lose our jobs. Now, the same report, the same McKinsey report and the World Economic Forum is actually a 140-page report. As much as they begin by saying that artificial intelligence and automation is the word of the future, and we would lose about 800 million workforce, this may sound depressing, but it actually represents a change in the workforce, which means the displaced employees could use their skills to take on more beneficial roles. It is not that people are losing jobs. People are restructuring or rearranging their jobs to make it more productivity enhanced. So we will have new roles. So the same report, it is a 140-page report, which says that out of 50 different fields where jobs could be lost or jobs could be retained, industries with jobs that are least likely to be automated, least likely to be automated are teaching, politics, hospitality, healthcare, and science. Now, in that report, if you click on healthcare, you get a drop down menu: physiotherapy, occupation therapy, speech therapy, healthcare nurses, healthcare services, audiology, and so on, which means among the jobs that are least likely to be automated are all of you healthcare people, physiotherapists, occupation therapists, and so on. And environmental health. Now, WHO has recognized the 17 sustainable development goals, and that is part of automation already. Climate change, environmental pollution, natural resources, sustainability. So, because of all this, and the same thing with imaging as well, radiology. Now, radiology practices will benefit from AI. So, machines now read and interpret multiple images. So, because the number of images has increased multiple fold. About 20 years ago, we had one X-ray to make a diagnosis. Now we have serial CT scans or serial slices, 50 to 100 slices, to detect even the tiniest of cancers. And all this, to train the machines, we need our people. So what does this mean? In a summary, of course, we will be working with robots, and we need to change our competencies, both basic and advanced computer skills. But the net end of the story is that our staff, our workers in all healthcare will be open to change. There will be greater flexibility, and what was once physically demanding work will now require more flexible responses, problem based thinking, and critical thinking. So much so that our techniques with working are changing so much that right now we have mobile devices that can track all our lifestyle associated diseases. This again is AI and automation in healthcare. And now there are new contact lenses which can detect glucose levels in the eye. Again, part of healthcare system and allied health as well. So your expertise, those of you who are participating, it could provide app developers and health publishers on various insights into developing strategies in medical apps as well. So, but despite all this technology, it still comes down to people and values. We need a human touch. Machines do not have the human touch. So, we need all healthcare personnel to continue doing your best in a health centered manner, patient centered manner, giving empathy, something that cannot be replaced by technology. So, having said all this, I noticed that today's scientific conference has a very interesting program, and happy to see that you are all going to focus on allied health developments and IR 4.0. And once again, I would like to extend my congratulations to Prof. Veronica's team for this commendable effort. And lastly, I would like to thank all the participants for participating in this conference. And let us extend a warm welcome to our local, international visitors and participants. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Shikwar. Now, it gives me a great pleasure to invite our guest of honor, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Ikram Shah bin Ismail, Vice Chancellor, MAHSA University, to deliver his speech and the inauguration of this conference. Please welcome Dato Dr. Ikram Shah.
Thank you, Sonia. Assalamualaikum and very good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to the inaugural MAHSA International Conference on Health Science and Technology, or MICHES 2021, organized by the Faculty of Health Sciences, MAHSA University. It is unfortunate that this year's event has to be conducted virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. I hope that we will be able to conduct future conferences face-to-face and thereby welcome you to MAHSA campus for a more intimate gathering. The theme for this year's conference, Moving Health Sciences Forward in IR 4.0, is both timely and relevant, as mentioned by Prof. Sri just now, as health sciences are being redefined with the application of novel technologies in Industrial Revolution 4.0. The fourth industrial revolution has a massive impact on the healthcare system. Medical and technological breakthroughs are transforming healthcare to become much more connected, precise, and democratized with significantly improved health outcomes. The COVID-19 pandemic has underlined the importance of health sciences education and the need for health science professionals to work together as part of the front line of healthcare services. This pandemic has also emphasized the roles of researchers in health and medical sciences and public health managers in managing health challenges, particularly with the production and delivery of life-saving vaccines within a relatively short time. Research will always lead the way to evidence-based advancements of every field, including health sciences, and MAHSA University aims to be a research-focused university that synergizes research with teaching to produce future-ready graduates. It is an honor for MAHSA University to have distinguished keynote and plenary speakers, as well as presenters from around the world, to share findings and knowledge at this international conference. I trust this conference will provide a great opportunity for health science practitioners, educators, and students to expand and update their knowledge in health sciences and its related technology. I hope everyone will take this golden opportunity to network virtually and create new knowledge centers leading to excellence in education and research in health sciences that ultimately benefits the community at large. Finally, I would like to congratulate the organizing committee under the able leadership of Associate Professor Dr. Veronica Chua, Dean of Faculty of Health Sciences, and Mr. Muhammad Puat, the conference chair, for organizing this conference so well. And I declare the inaugural MAHSA International Conference on Health Science and Technology, MICHES 2021, officially open. I wish all participants a productive and successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Ikram Shah. Without further ado, We shall move on to our first session with our lines of remarkable keynote speakers. Introducing our first keynote speaker for the day from the field of environmental health and safety, Professor Dr. Jamal Hisham Hashim. Professor Dr. Jamal Hisham Hashim is a visiting professor of environmental health at Universitas Selangor and Universitas Diponegoro. He is also a director of ProVenue Corporation Sendriad Berhad, which specializes in health risk and impact assessments. He was formerly a research fellow at the United Nations University, International Institute for Global Health, and Malaysia's first appointed professor of environmental health at the University of Malaysia, UKM. Professor Jamal obtained his PhD in environmental health from the University of Michigan. He taught, conducted research, worked as a consultant in environmental and occupational health at UKM and UNU IIGH for 36 years. He has supervised a total of 14 PhD students. His research interests are mainly on health effects of heavy metals, pesticides, solvents, air pollution, risk assessment, and recently climate change. He has been the principal and co-investigator for 19 research projects and has over 410 publications and present to date, including 104 full articles in referred and index journals. He's editor of Environmental Analysis, Health and Toxicology and Frontier in Occupational Health journals. Please welcome Professor Dr. Jamal Hisham Hashim.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sonia. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning to everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank MAHSA University and also the organizing committee for this opportunity to address the conference as a keynote speaker. And I hope very much that the conference will bring great success to you. So this morning, I've been tasked to present on health implication of climate change in Malaysia and some insight into IoT solution with respect to IR 4.0. Next slide. Okay. Basically, this is my presentation this morning. We will begin with a look at the environmental health issues in Malaysia, our national policy on climate change, some greenhouse gas emission scenario in Malaysia, the observed and projected climate change scenario for Malaysia, and then we will zoom in into the aspect of climate change and health, and climate change mitigation and adaptation, and a little bit on some possible solution using IR 4.0 or IoT solution. I must admit that I'm not an expert on IoT matters, yeah, but I will try to address it as much as possible. Next slide. Okay, these are a list of the 10 most pressing environmental health issue in Malaysia. What we did was we gathered some 20 environmental health expert and practitioner, and we asked them to rank the environmental health issue in terms of magnitude and severity. So you can see that climate change is the 5th rank top environmental health issue in Malaysia. But if you look at the other issue, they are very much related to climate change as well. For example, vector-borne diseases, yeah, contamination of drinking water, urban health issue, certainly, food safety, food security, and zoonotic diseases are very much associated and intertwined with climate change. Next slide. Okay, so Malaysia is not left behind in terms of trying to address climate change. We are very much part of the global community. As you know, climate change is certainly a global issue, and many feel that the impact from climate change will be as great or even greater than the pandemic that we are going through right now. Yeah. So our national policy has been approved by the cabinet in 2000, back in 2009, and the policy recognized the need for mitigation and adaptation to be carried out in a balanced manner, consolidating economic, social, and environmental development goals. So to address climate change, we need to move forward in terms of development in a sustainable manner, conserve our environment and natural resources, coordinated implementation at all level of development. So the concern for climate change has to be incorporated into all our development plan. So for example, the Malaysia plan and so on. Yeah. Effective participation of stakeholder. So this is it calls for an all of government and all of society approach in addressing climate change. Common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities. So our goal is the same, to address and to mitigate climate change, but we may act differently according to our role in society. Next, please. Next slide. So in order to help address climate change, each country has to make what they call their NDC, or National Determined Contribution, in trying to mitigate climate change by reducing the emission of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, which is one of the greenhouse gas. Here, Malaysia has or is fully committed to reduce carbon emission by 45% per GDP by 2030, relative to its emission intensity in 2005. And the reduction in greenhouse gases has been extended not just for carbon dioxide, but for other greenhouse gases as well, like methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, sulfur hexafluoride, and nitrogen trifluoride. So there are other greenhouse gases that can contribute to global warming, and they have also to be addressed accordingly in our strategy to minimize climate change. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay. This show the contribution of global warming or greenhouse gas from different sectors between 2005 and 2014. As you can see, the biggest contributor, of course, is the energy sector. Yeah, in terms of power generation, in terms of transportation use, and similar contributors. Yeah, both in 2005 and 2014. Waste generation is also a big contributor, and there's only a slight reduction from 8% in 2005 to a slight increase from to 8% in 2005 to 9% in 2014. Yeah? So there is increase in terms of contribution from the various sector between 2005 and 2014. Yeah, and in terms of the contributor of greenhouse gases, of course, carbon dioxide make the most significant contributor, and there's only a slight different between 2005 and 2014. Next slide. Yeah. So if we move forward into the future, looking at the various possible trajectory that we may go through, yeah, whether it's business as usual or directed planning or an ambitious strategy. Okay? Sadly to say that there is not that much difference between business as usual and ambitious strategy, which means that we have to do a lot more. Yeah, and you can see there in terms of contributor, energy remain the biggest contributor, the yellow or yellow orangish bar. Yeah, you can see up to 2030 there will be an increased contribution from this sector, even with the ambitious trajectory plan. Next slide. Okay. In terms of the energy sector, we can see here the biggest contributor, yeah, is between the plan trajectory and the ambitious trajectory. We can see for both the major contributor from the energy sector will be industry and transport. Yeah? So these are the two areas that we need to focus on, yeah, if we want to reduce carbon emission. And I believe IR 4.0 or the Internet of Things will play a very big role in terms of mitigating carbon emission from these two sectors. Next slide. Okay. Here we see the current or the previous and current temperature profile for Malaysia from 1951 to 2014. Yeah? So this is from the record that we have in terms of temperature measurement in the country. And even up to 2014, it is very obvious that there is a gradual increase, yeah, a gradual increase in terms of temperature over time, yeah, in Peninsular Malaysia as well as Sabah and Sarawak. Okay? So in the top graph, you can see the gradual decline over the years, yeah, in terms of daily maximum temperature. In terms of lowest daily minimum temperature, there's also an increase evidently for Sarawak, but not so much for Peninsula, Malaysia and Sabah. Yeah? But so what we are saying is that climate change is not really a phenomenon of the future. Is already here. We are already experiencing climate change. What we are trying to do now is to limit the extent of climate change and the impact from climate change. Next slide. Yeah. Here we can see the projected temperature and rainfall pattern for Malaysia for 2030 and up to 2050. Yeah. So you can see the annual temperature rise for Peninsular Malaysia and East Malaysia. There is not that much different between the three locations or areas. So we are expecting about 1.4 to 1.6 increase in temperature. But for annual rainfall, you can see that for Peninsular Malaysia, we can expect as much as 11% increase in annual rainfall. Yeah, significant increase in annual rainfall that might result in flooding and landslides and things like that, which evidently we are seeing right now. Next slide. Climate change also warm up the sea, making it to expand, making the seawater when it's warm up, it will expand. So that will also result in sea level rise, and because of also of the melting of the polar ice, will also increase the volume of the water, and this will result in sea level rise. And it's quite alarming to see that for 2050, Sabah may experience sea level rise of 0.6 meter. Yeah, so that is quite significant. So we are quite worried that some of the low-lying areas throughout Malaysia, yeah, not just Sabah, but also throughout Malaysia, may be inundated or may experience what we call saltwater intrusion, because of that. Next slide, please. Okay, this gives you a snapshot of the health impact of global climate change. Yeah, so in global climate change, we begin with the global warming, but there is also a global cooling effect from the possible increase of air pollution, especially particulate pollution in the air, which reflects sunlight, so it will result in global cooling. But the net effect is still global warming. So what global warming will impact on, firstly, is it will modify the environment as depicted by the purple colored boxes. Yeah, things like increased sea level rise, increased precipitation, decreased precipitation, and all that. And this environmental modification will result in environmental impact as shown by the brown colored boxes. Yeah, things like coastal flooding, drought, vector breeding, and finally the environmental impact will result in health consequences. Yeah, vector-borne diseases, rodent transmitted diseases, which I will highlight a little bit later. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, one of the study we did was a study on the major flooding in 2014, focusing on Kelantan. Yeah, which has been published in the American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. Next slide. Okay, so what we saw was that because of the severe flooding in Kelantan, there was a sharp increase in rainfall, as shown by the red-colored graph, red colored line graph, and this was followed by a sharp increase in leptospirosis cases. As you know, leptospirosis transmitted by urine of rodent, especially rats, and this got transmitted through water, to flood water. And you can see the increase of with a lag of about a few weeks, and sharp increase also in leptospirosis cases in Kelantan. But what we were puzzled was that after the flood, there was still minor peaks in the leptospirosis cases, and it took quite a while for the cases to come down to its previous level. Next slide. So when we look further, actually what we found was that after the flood, there were certainly a lot of waste and debris from the flood, which need to be disposed quickly, and this was done a little bit haphazardly because of the situation that they were facing. And when we do GIS analysis, we found that the leptospirosis cases were actually concentrating around this ad hoc or haphazardly established disposal places, garbage disposal places. Next slide. Another study that my student was involved in was looking at cholera projection in Sabah, with effect from climate change. We can see that in the center graph, the mean monthly temperature will increase gradually up to 2100, the year 2100. And you cannot clearly see it, but if you look at the top graph, the light green colored graph, you can see that there will be a gradual increase in cholera projection due to the climate change effect in Sabah. Next slide. We also look at the potential impact of malaria in Sabah with related to climate variables, rainfall, LST, land surface temperature, and also vegetation. In Sabah, malaria is still quite endemic, especially from the current pesticide Plasmodium nosai. So there has been a shift from the traditional Plasmodium vivac and Plasmodium falciparum to Plasmodium nosai, which is associated with the long-tail macaque primate. And we can see that malaria will be very sensitive to climate variable such as rainfall, surface temperature, but also to vegetation. NDVI is a measure of vegetation index. It shows that because many areas, forested areas are being cleared, and this disturb the vegetation, and it will have impact on malaria transmission. Next slide. Okay. What about mitigation? What can we do? If you remember previously, I showed you the slide of energy sector. Transportation is one of the main contributor to our carbon emission. So what we need to do is to move away from our private individual transportation to public transportation. So we did a study to look at the carbon saving and health co-benefit with the introduction of the MRT line in Malaysia. Next slide. And we found a very interesting result. Of course, when you move from private transportation to public transportation, you will be taking cars and motorbikes and whatnot off the road. And there will be, in the top table, you will see a significant reduction in tons of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere, but also the reduction in particulate matter, especially PM 2.5, which is very have a significant impact on health. And with this, you will have reduction in air pollution. You will also get less car on the road, so there is less death from traffic injury and increased physical activity. So we measure the avoidance of death and avoidance of DALI, disability adjusted life years. And initially we thought that maybe air pollution would be the biggest benefit or contributor to this low carbon. But apparently it's the physical activity. You can see down there under the bottom table, the greatest benefit will actually be accrued from improved physical activity. Secondly, from reduced traffic injury, and lastly, from air pollution. So you can expect this benefit of killing a few birds with one stone, not just two, but a few birds with one stone. Reduction in carbon emission as well as co-benefit. So I think we will have to improve further on our public transportation. Next slide. Okay, so finally, I think it won't do justice if I don't say something about IR 4.0. I think based on my literature review, I'm not an expert on this. I can see there are several opportunities for us to engage in IR 4.0 in trying to mitigate climate change. Number one is lighting. Lighting, it contribute to 5% of the global carbon dioxide emission, and public lighting alone can account for 20 to 40% of a municipality electric bill. Now, if the whole world switch to this energy efficient LED technology, we can expect 50 to 70% energy saving, and reduction in 1,400 million tons of carbon dioxide. And the interesting thing is that we can avoid the construction of 1,250 power station that burns fossil fuel. There's a lot of power station, and we know that power station not only release carbon dioxide but also particulate matters and also sulfur dioxide, which are hazardous to our health. And we know that there are sensors, for example, that can be used to improve lighting efficiency. And also they are talking about this smart grid electricity distribution system. So, we overproduce our electricity because we don't want the electricity supply to trip and cause blackout. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, we produce like 30% or 20% more electricity than we needed, right? Because we don't have the smart grid electricity distribution system yet. So with the advance of IR 4.0, maybe we can have smart distribution system which minimize the need for wastage. Next slide. Okay, and the other thing is that our home and our building will become smarter, especially in this COVID-19 era where we work remotely, like this conference we are having right now. So there is a need for green and smart building, which focus on energy efficiency. I mentioned about lighting, temperature control, ventilation, solar panel, inverter, air conditioning system, and all that. So all this can be controlled digitally and using artificial intelligence, efficient water use, rainwater harvesting. Not all of these are related to IoT, but some are obviously where IoT has a role to play. Minimizing waste, maximizing reuse of material, promoting health and well-being, how to remain healthy when we work from home and all that. We can have remote health monitor system to monitor our health, so we don't have to visit the hospital and clinic all the time. Greening the environment, our home can also become farm, urban farm, using resilient structure, what do you call that? Sustainable building material, connecting communities. Even though we work remotely, we can be connected. To, for example, also we need to promote active transport, high-speed internet, 5G is coming, for example, and reducing the impact of building material, so that we don't waste our natural resources, trees, forests, and things like that. Next slide. Okay, this is an example of maybe a future home which is incorporating a lot of energy saving, carbon dioxide minimizing technology, solar heater, water heater, solar energy, lawn which will absorb water, very efficient energy use such as water in efficient fitting, dual flush toilet, grey water use. We can use water from our bath and all that to water the lawn. Proper insulation, skylight. We used to have this skylight in our home, but I think most of the new home no longer have this. Proper insulation. So these are the things that we can do to improve on our use of energy to minimize the impact of global climate change. Maybe this is the last slide. Next slide. Yeah, okay. So that's very much what I can say about climate change and the challenges that we face and some of the possible solution that will come about through IR 4.0. Of course, there are more to say, but in the interest of time, I have to limit my presentation. And again, I thank the organizer for this invitation, and I hope I've been able to give some input and highlight into the issues of climate change that the world is facing, but also the role that Malaysia can play in trying to address this problem. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Jamal, for sharing your insights into issues related to climate change and solutions provided by IR 4.0. I would like to invite Professor Dr. Shri Kumar Chakravarti to present a certificate of appreciation.
Thank you, Prof. Jamal Hashim. Thank you for the
you.
wonderful talk and for the amount of effort that you've taken to prepare for this. I can see that it's taken days, not even hours. And thank you for enlightening all of us. On
Yes.
behalf of MAHSA University, I would like to present the virtual e-certificate.
Oh,
And
okay.
thank you once again. This is your certificate of appreciation on behalf of MAHSA University. So I think this is again part of AI and automation where we present
Yeah,
the
yeah,
certificate.
yeah. Yeah, I accept it. Yeah, with great honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Shri Kumar. Next, from the field of physiotherapy, we have here with us Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Haizer Abdul Manaf to deliver his keynote speech. Dr. Muhammad Haizer Abdul Manaf is an associate professor in the Faculty of Health Sciences, University Technology Mara. He is presently the president of Malaysian Physiotherapy Association since 2019 with significant contributions towards the betterment of the profession in Malaysia. He is the head of the Center of Physiotherapy Studies in Faculty of Health Sciences, UITM, rendering his expert knowledge and advice in curriculum development of physiotherapy, diploma, degree, and master's program. He is the chairman of Jabatan Kuasa Ahli Panel, Panelai Akreditasi, MAHPC, MQA, and member of Malaysia Allied Health Profession Council. He is the head of clinical rehabilitation and research group, being extensively involved in the field of research with accumulation of international and national grants. He is the recipient of 6 gold and 3 silver medals as Innovation Awards. He has received Excellence Awards in UITM since 2015. He has authored 43 publications in various international, national, and specialized journals in his field of research. A very warm welcome to Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Haizer.
Thank you very much for the kind introductions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me share my slide. I hope that you all can see my slide. First of all, I would like to thank Chairman for the kind introductions. And also I would like to thank the organizer to give me the opportunity as the keynote speaker for the MAHSA International Conference of Health Sciences and Technology 2021. So the title of my presentation will be the technology-driven approach in gait analysis for post-stroke rehabilitations. So this is the content of my presentations. For these presentations, I will focus on the current practice in gait analysis for stroke patients among clinicians, also among therapists in Malaysia. Next, I will talk about the wearable sensors for stroke rehabilitations, specifically on gait training and monitoring physical activity. So stroke is the leading cause of adult disability, and a majority of stroke survivors presented with post-stroke gait dysfunctions that may resulting in compromised community participations and quality of life. Depends on nature and severity of neurological deficits. Patient may presented with lower extremity weakness, postural instability, post-stroke fatigue. Some of them are presented with communications and cognitive impairments that may lead to gait and mobility deficits. So gait assessment or analysis in terms of the capacity of walking among post-stroke patients can be divided into observational gait analysis and also the performance-based assessment. So this is common technique, this cheap technique, or maybe is most because most of us have a handphone with the camera functions. We are favor or comfortable to use video tip, as some of us can have the opportunity to have the software such as Kinovia that may embedded with the computer. And by this function, we can review the tips many times. Okay, for example, okay, right? Okay, we can review the tips many times. It reduces the times for the patients to walk for the purpose of observations. And also, in addition, patient can see how they are walking. Over the time, it helps to convince patients that they are not improving. So this is the best view. We call it as the sagittal plane movement. Is the best observed and recorded from the side. In order to perform this, the physiotherapist must be familiar with the results of gait observational analysis into the both healthy and disabled people. And the subjects should underpin and direct evaluations and training in gait in clinical practice. So it means that the therapist should be able to compare the performance between healthy and also disabled patients in order to determine the gait abnormalities. Okay. In some clinical setting, okay, they may have this kind of technology or maybe equipments. Okay, for example, this equipment, Get Right. All right, Get Right mat is based on the mat. Is a sensor embedded walkways. Is a floor walkway system that equipped with grids of embedded sensor below the surface. And this technology was designed and approved for gait analysis system by United States of America. And this helped to measure the spatiotemporal gait parameters towards the in order to evaluate the post-stroke gait symmetry. It's very quite easy to use equipments. Then it should be integrated with the computer, with the laptop, and is the portable. You can use the equipments at anywhere. And our research is not restricted at the hospital base only. We can go to the community base. Okay. So this is a typical gait lab setup. This is we call it as a gait lab laboratory. So it consists of minimum 6 to 8 cameras, 3D cameras, with the embedded of the force plate. So this is 3D setup. So it must be must be embedded in this laboratory setup. So means that the equipment is not movable. It only meant to be used in the lab setting. So for clinicians, this can I play the video? So for clinicians, these methods of measuring gait parameters involve quite expensive optical motions capture system. It's quite time consuming because it's require intensive setup. After that, it involves complicated filtering techniques and laboratory settings. Therefore, some of the clinicians or therapists, rather than prefer to use handphone or performance-based assessment tools rather than using the 3D gait analysis. The main issue is that this equipment quite expensive and must be set up in the quiet and dedicated room for the lab setup. So other than that, physiotherapy can use the performance-based assessment. One of it is the one of the most easy to use, and it must be measurable and reliable and sensitive, is to use to measure the gait speed. Okay, normally we use the 10-meter walk test. Is the common considered the gold standard for gait speed assessment. The total time taken to ambulate 6 meter is recorded and divided by the total time in seconds taken to ambulate and recorded in meter per second. So by having this, we can classify the patient ability. If the patient performs less than 0.4 meter per second, is considered household ambulators. Between 0.4 to 0.8 meter per second, we can categorize the patient into limited community ambulators. If the patient can walk more than 0.8 meter per second, is considered as community ambulators. Another type of the performance-based assessment will be the time up and go test. It's a performance-based tool used to assess balance and mobility performance, as well as turning capacity or ability in the population with various diagnoses, including geriatrics and neurological-based patients. So the TUG test measure the time taken for any individual to stand up from the chair, walk 3 meters, turn around, walk 3 meters back to the chair, and sit down. The time taken to complete the TUG test has been shown to predict falls in community dwelling elderly and also stroke patients. Furthermore, if patients of individual takes more than 5 steps or more than 3 seconds to complete the TUG test, she or he is considered to have turning difficulty. So the skillful turning during walking is one of the key factors for functional ambulation. Stroke survivors with sensory motor impairment may have difficulty in organizing proper turning sequence. This may put them at risk of fall. As you can see, patients have presented with staggering or loss of balance during turning. And for their temporal special gait parameters, they are presented with delay in initiations of turn. They may turn with slower gait speed, asymmetrical step length, and with and to a longer time and steps. So another performance-based assessment, another performance-based assessment tools will be the 6-minute walk test. For ambulatory patients, it measures the walking endurance. Okay, if the patient cannot cope with the 6-minute walk test, we can start with the 2-minute walk test. The time, total distance, and number of rest stops and symptom at rest stops are recorded. So short distance, for example, for 2-minute walk test has been used for patients with acute stroke. While during the test, the patient can stop to rest and use an assistive device as needed. So the 6-minute or 2 minutes walk test is a good measure of functional capacity in terms of endurance performance. So for the next subsections, I will focus on the wearable device that most frequently used in the study of human motions, with special emphasis on monitoring of gait performance in strokes patients. So the wearable technology in the post-stroke rehabilitation should include the definition of device, any wearable device that is worn, that is wear externally on the body, must be wireless and able to capture parameters related to movement and gait. Users also wanted wearable sensors that were low invasive, okay, and did not have effects on normal daily behavior. So sometimes quite confused because some of the clinicians or therapists wanted sensors that have real-time data function, minimal time to familiarize with the device, should be able to follow and to monitor patient progress, must be low cost, simple interface, long battery life, and have larger storage capacity and are not restricted to one location or room. So this is quite challenging for not only for the therapists, for the engineering base, as they have to really design a new equipment that must be have that kind of the suitable rules for patient nowadays. Especially it must be cheap, have low cost, okay, simple interference, longer battery life, and larger storage. So the clinical applicability of wearable technologies in order to improve walking post-strokes. So the wearable technologies afford an exciting avenue to monitor and to provide feedback on walking functions across the different phases of stroke recovery. So wearable activity monitors and pedometers have been widely used, okay, to examine physical activity levels, especially via assessment of daily step count and step rate. So physiotherapists to inform and to modify plans of care or treatments approach and can be used by patients effectively to self-monitor themselves about their progressions during and after stroke rehabilitations. So wearable technologies also can provide real-time vital data to provide insight as to their patients' live experience. For example, time spent active versus sedentary lifestyles, time spent walking, number of steps taken, and also time spent in specific activities. So there are two types of wearable technologies. One will be the consumer grade. Another one will be the research grade. Okay, for the consumer grade, they have a lot of the brand. For example, Fitbit, Apple Watch, Garmin, Vivo Smart, that integrated with heart rate assessment. They are less expensive and more user friendly. It reflects real life situations, especially at home or community based assessment, including the walking speeds, distance, uh, by using this technology. Okay, by using this technology, it can provide ongoing insights into a person or patient's functional performance post-stroke. The second one will be the research grade. This is more expensive and it required some of them are required additional analysis such as Actigraph, G33X plus, and also the active pole initial measurement unit or EMG, surface EMG. So the activity monitors, it including sensors. Okay, the sensor will be the accelerometer, barometer, and also some of them are included with the GPS. So it can provide feedback for stroke patients about their physical activity levels as one of the strategy that could change their behavior and also increase physical activity level. Okay, some of the equipments can provide step count, impact force, speed, sedentary time, and also exercise. So wearable device that counts steps or measure activity or some of them are integrated with the smartphone applications that provide feedback also about their physical activity can be useful. The current evidence, however, the sum of the evidence is show insufficient to make recommendations about the use of activity monitors for stroke patients to increase their physical activity in patients, and also either in inpatients or community settings. So based on the recent systematic review by the Cochrane and also by the Peters et al. 2021, the most commonly used wearable technologies were triaxial accelerometer of varied brands. Okay, the concept as they are using triaxial accelerometer. Fewer studies using pressure sensor for gait assessment. Okay, and then based on other review also, they are showing that accelerometer based feedback may increase physical activity, exercise energy expenditure, and also the durations of activity time in hospitalized patient with ischemic stroke. So the result also suggests that subjects with low baseline levels of walking and long distance walking will show greater benefit when a step activity monitoring program is used in conjunction with an interventions designed to increase walking capacity. For example, by using stepwatch activity monitor. So, in addition, monitoring the executions of activity of daily living can benefit from electromyograph or EMG recording, as this sensor allow capturing difference of muscle pattern activations resulting from compensatory movement. So initial measurement units or IMUs are devices combining the acceleration readings from accelerometer and the angular turning rate detections of gyroscope. The previous study have used IMUs with diagnostic purpose and to assess the executions of daily life activity. So high probability and accessibility cause further support these sensors as an options for prolonged training during the chronic stage, or especially at home. There are general complications inherent to the use of this device, such as estimation error derived for some of the accumulated errors in the calculations of rotation from the angular oscillations. However, but with a high movement variability in stroke patients, it may resulting from adopted compensatory muscle synergies. So this is one of the IMUs that have been used in the clinical settings.
Introducing an innovative system for comprehensive gait and balance analysis. With hundreds of users worldwide, Mobility Lab is the most trusted wearable gait and balance analysis system on the market. Using objective measurement, Mobility Lab provides sensitive, valid, and reliable metrics.
So APDM measures the specific
Analyze
temporal
and store data.
and spatial gait parameter.
Built for universal use with forgiving
The opal
sensors.
sensors by APDM company, or the sensor itself we call as the APDM or opal sensor, is an initial measurement unit IMU that consists of triaxial accelerometer, triaxial gyroscope, and triaxial magnetometer. So each opal sensor is about the size of wristwatch and weight less than 20 grams.
The system automatically analyzes lower extremity gait segmented by each stride and upper extremity movement to measure your subject's balance. Stream directly to a computer or log data on board each sensor. Never lose data in or out of the lab. Save time and effort and track subject progress over time. Store and export data locally or to the Mobility Exchange server.
Okay. So myself, I have been using this equipment for the past 4 years, and we published a few papers related to the gait performance in children with traumatic brain injury and also patients with stroke survivors. For me, this equipment is quite easy and friendly user, because we can do wherever area or without restricted to the lab based setting. So another technology that have been used will be the pressure sensor. However, it is still under investigation by researcher in Korea. But it shows that some of the pressure sensor is being used to measure manually the time up and go assessment based on their papers in 2020. However, it is still under investigation and research in order to improve the technology. So the practical considerations, whatever the equipment that you have bought, or maybe you can design, or maybe you can use for further research, the option must be a training, must be thoroughly and carefully explained to the patients, and when applicable to their caregivers. Only they have few problem in terms of data logging. Data logging means that either you make sure that one option is to keep all data and the device on one device. Either you want to keep all data in one device, or extract it once the participant or the patients give the device back at the end of the study. Okay, there is one options. However, there is a risk which if the study is the longest study, the device that have been lent for the longer study can be either damaged, or maybe the device would result in loss of all previously gathered data. So as an alternative would be to relay the data to a protected server. However, this could be challenging whenever participants' homes are located in a rural or relatively isolated area with poor internet connections. So currently, we are using what do you call it? The best option would be to store data both on the device and also on the server. However, it can be a redundant work for the researcher, but that one will be the best option currently. So as the conclusion, wearable sensors show promise resolving at least some of this problem. Regular assessment complemented with this technology can reduce bias in measurement and estimations, as well as reduce assessment time for therapies. Short-term rehabilitative training offered during the first 6 months after stroke could be prolonged by offering home-based therapies designed and monitored remotely by therapists, allowing patients to train in their familiar environment. So last video from me, I would like to show the current research by the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. They are designing a quite
We're starting to track our
small
patients here at the Shirley
sensor
Ryan Ability Lab
to measure patient
during their
performance
therapies throughout
after
the day
the rehabilitation
using
stage.
sensors.
If you look at what's in the hospital today, most of the sensors require wired connections to external boxes of electronics. So it's great if you're in a hospital bed, maybe it's okay. But if you want to go home, it's just not going to be compatible with natural daily activities.
The sensor itself, I couldn't even tell it was on me. It was like a bandage.
It really allows you to track the patient continuously, but in a way that's not disruptive.
We're measuring their speech, their swallowing capability, the movement of their upper and lower limbs, their sleep quality, how do they recover during therapy, or how do they handle different types of therapy. Clinical outcome measures are their walking, balance, movement, sweat. So a lot of the participants really recover well during the inpatient setting or when they're in the hospital. The biggest problem is a lot of these gains tend to drop off if they go home.
One of the benefits of this is that we're going to be able to follow them and track their performance after they leave here to see how they're functioning in the real world.
But they have a great team of scientists here at Ability Lab. It's infused with physician scientists who are willing to embrace and work with us on new technologies. And so it becomes a very powerful collaboration, bringing advanced engineering together with rehabilitation science and clinical medicine to focus on the patient.
This technology and these sensors, I think, could be very useful for patients' recovery. I get data, an immediate feedback on my walking, so I think that's a very good thing.
I think these sensors are a game change in the field of rehabilitation because they allow us to monitor patients on different aspects of their recovery, both in the hospital and in the real world.
With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Mohammed Haizer, for sharing your thoughts on various technological solutions rendered to stroke patients to improve gait and functional independence. I would like to invite once again Professor Dr. Shri Kumar Chakravarti to present a certificate of appreciation.
Thank you, Professor Haizer Manaf. This is a wonderful talk, very informative, and you added a lot of wonderful videos as well. So on behalf of MAHSA University, we present you our certificate of appreciation for your contribution as a keynote speaker for the talk today.
Thank you very much, the organizer, once again, for having me as the keynote speaker for your international conferences. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Shri Kumar. Last but not the least, we shall proceed to our last keynote speaker from the field of medical imaging. I would like to invite Dr. Noor Azrul Azmi bin Yahaya to present his keynote speech. Dr. Noor Azrul Azmi is a lecturer of diagnostic imaging and radiotherapy at National University of Malaysia, UKM. He obtained his PhD in medical physics from the University of Western Australia in 2016. He's an expert in radiotherapy whose research interests are mainly in the medical physics, radiotherapy, and diagnostic imaging, and has done various research studies in the field. He is currently a researcher in the field of modeling and biostatistics at the Onco Center for Radiation Research in Oncology, Germany. He has more than 30 publications and mainly focused in the area of radiotherapy. Please welcome Dr. Noor Azrul Azmi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction. Can you hear me all right and can see my slide? Can you? Okay. If there is no problem, I will continue my presentation. Okay. So for today, I'll talk about artificial intelligence in diagnosis and treatment of cancer. I'm Noor Azrul, anyway, from the Faculty of Health Sciences, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. So we talk about diagnosis and treatment of cancer and how artificial intelligence will help in this two major steps in treatment of cancer. Okay, so if you look at cancers in the world, this is the incidence and also the death, the mortality due to cancer. You can see that Asia has a significant percentage of the incidence of cancer, and this is not surprising given the number of people, the number of people reside in the Asian region of the world. So the issue now, you can see here in terms of the mortality, you can see that we in Asia has a significant percentage of mortality due to cancer as compared to people in Oceania or in Europe, European countries, or in the Americas. So this shows that cancer is a very prevalent thing, and we have a lot of challenges associated with cancer. And I believe that artificial intelligence will help somehow in reducing this burden of cancer, the incidence of cancer, and also the mortality due to cancer. Okay, so let's look at the steps in major steps in the treatment of diagnosis of treatment of cancer. We know that we have a lot of modalities used to detect or to diagnose cancers. So we have mammography, MRI, ultrasound, CT scan, other types of ultrasound, including endoscopic ultrasound, and we have this PET imaging, which help us to diagnose the cancer. Okay, and
Dr. Norazul, sorry if I'm disturbing you. Your slides are not on the full mode. Can you please put it on the slideshow?
I already put in a slideshow.
Oh, we can't see that. And the slides are
Um,
also not moving as well. So it's just onto the first slide, the title of the talk.
okay, so how do
Maybe
I
would
do
you like,
that?
maybe
I
would you like
already
to just stop
tested this.
sharing and share back again? Oh, it's moving now. It's moving now.
Do you see the full screen or the just
No, it's not full screen yet, but we can just see the slide moving now.
this is, you can see diagnosis and treatment?
I can see the diagnosis and treatment slide.
Okay,
but,
sure.
But
I think the issue is I cannot make it full screen now because I have tested it with your the organizer. Can I just use this instead? Because
okay,
I think
all right.
okay. So
Okay,
sorry for
fine.
that. So this is, if you look at the diagnosis of diagnosis and the treatment. Now I can see that my face is like, okay. So if you look at the diagnosis and treatment of cancer, we can see that we use a lot of these modern technologies. So mammography, MRI, ultrasound, CT scan, and all. And also we have the treatment where you can have we can have hormone therapy, surgery, radiotherapy, and immunotherapy. So these are so many options of radiotherapy treatment and so many ways of diagnosing the cancer. Okay, so if you look at this, we have a lot of data involved in the diagnosis and treatment of cancer. Okay, so a lot of this data require human interpretation. For example, in order for us to diagnose cancer, a radiologist will be involved um, deciding whether the patient has detecting the cancer. Okay, so whether the cancer is benign or whether the cancer is malignant, or whether there are other metastases in other parts of the body. Okay, so these require human intervention in a way that humans need to make a lot of decisions. Okay, the same goes to for treatment of cancer. You can see that we need to decide which is the best treatment for this patient. For example, a patient with stage 4 of pancreatic cancer, what is the best treatment for this patient? So there, again, this is another human decision that need to be made for the patient before they undergo treatment. So the same goes to, for example, what is the best follow-up for this patient? What is the best treatment with the best outcome for this patient? Okay, um, uh, whether the patient will survive long, whether this patient will survive, require treatment. So these are all requiring a lot of decision making from the experts, the clinicians, and also the radiographers, and also the radiation therapists. So a lot of these decisions require the help but the clinicians and the professionals to look at a massive amount of data, look at the new, for example, the new the CT images, the new studies looking at different effectiveness of treatment. So that require
a lot of information, a lot of data processing in the side of the clinicians. So, for example, if you look at in cancer diagnosis, so the radiologist will need to look at various type of images. There are CT images, PET images, MRI images. So one of those that a retrospective error rate among radiologic examination is approximately 30%. So 30% of the diagnosis may be not optimal or may be wrong, okay, due to this fatigue associated with looking at many images and many images and many information from the patient information sheet from the medical records of the patient. Okay, so 97% of the medical malpractice claims against radiologists are related to diagnostic errors. And so we can see here that a lot of these issues are related to human errors associated with our own disability to process so many information coming our way. Okay, so increased workload, rising quality expectation, cognitive biases, and poor system factors are all contribute to diagnostic errors in radiology. Okay, so we can see that all these information overload coming to the doctor's attention may cause errors in diagnosis and also may cause errors in decision making. So there are studies looking at differences between clinicians and artificial intelligence decision. In this study, artificial intelligence has been extensively used in a range of medical fields to promote therapeutic development. These diverse AI techniques can contribute to early detection, disease diagnosis, and referral management. So we can see this study from Shen in 2018. They look at multiple comparisons between AI and doctors, because they conclude that performance of AI was at par with that of clinicians. So machines directed decision making is as good as a clinician's decision making or diagnosis, and somehow it exceeded that of a clinician with less experience. So we can see that AI decision made by machines or artificial intelligence can somehow parallel the decision accuracy of decision made by the clinician. So this is the potential of having AI in helping the doctors, the clinicians, in making a good decisions for the patient. So in this another study from in 2018, these are all very recent studies looking at differences, the ability of this AI directed decision making to produce decisions for the patient, for the doctors. So we can see here that the AI, the deep learning, is a way is somehow produce a better result compared to using clinician-directed decisions. So it is quite significant too, 0.69 in terms of the AUC compared to 0.58 for clinician-directed. We can also see the improve of decision accuracy using deep learning as compared to the expert and the expert decision maker, the clinicians, in terms of making decisions for the diagnosis of this patient. Okay, so performance comparisons of prognosis and diagnosis between AI method and human pathologies, you can see here that there are quite a significant improvement by using AI methodology. So what do we do with this information? Okay, so the most important thing is for now, the performance is comparable with medical expert, especially in image recognition related field. Okay, so we can see now that the machine is becoming better and better in producing a diagnosis for these patients using images that traditionally look at by the radiologists or better pathologists in dermatology instance. Okay, so we can see that this is the future. So that the future of diagnosis, because with the help of these AI, the clinicians and the artificial intelligence can work side by side to produce the best diagnosis, the most accurate diagnosis for this patient, so that there are less risk of misdiagnosis. The error rate become lower, so that the patient will be treated faster. Okay, so if the diagnosis and is more accurate and faster, the treatment can be more efficiently given to these patients, so that this patient will have a better chance of survival, better chance of higher quality of life, better chance of complete cure of the cancer. So one way of looking at it is that AI technology can work as a peer review, so that both the radiologists or the oncologists can look at the images, and the AI can determine whether we can help them in a way to detect any abnormality on the image, and it will help the clinician to make a better decisions and better diagnosis without with less error. This is one example of chest X-ray. You can see that how the machine look at this X-ray and find areas of potential abnormalities, and they somehow calculate the probability of these diseases based on these images and based on this location. So we can see here, that probably there are the higher probability of a nodule in the lung. Okay, so based on this explanation and based on the location, the radiologist will look at the image more deeply at this location, so that they can make sure that they don't miss any nodes in the lung. Okay, so we can see now how radiologists and the machine can work together side by side by improving the accuracy and reducing the human error. So we can see here that there are some risk of cardiomegaly, slight increase of risk of cardiomegaly. So the doctors, the radiologist can look at the images and measure whether it is actual cardiomegaly or just the machine error associated with looking at the image. Okay, so now I hope that you can see that how the machines can help, how the machine or AI technology can help in reducing errors associated with associated with this diagnosis. Okay, so in terms of cancer care, we can see that what we look now is accurate cancer diagnosis. Okay, so that is the most crucial thing. Just imagine if a machine can detect breast cancer like 2 years before a conventional mammography, a radiologist can see them. from the image. So that will somehow help so that the cancer can be removed as soon as possible. So that will reduce the risk of local recurrence, reduce the risk of what you call it, metastasis of the cancer to other parts of the body, reduce increase the survival of the patient, increase the quality of life of the patient. So cancer diagnosis and treatment. In terms of cancer care, we have multiple ways of how AI can help in the making all these decisions. For example, we can look at treatment of cancer, and so AI can help in individualizing the treatment. And we talk about different ways cancers can be treated, whether it can be immunotherapy and radiotherapy or surgery. So AI can help to optimize the treatment and individualize the treatment so that the patient will receive the best treatment. Okay, so the best treatment. So whether the patient need radiotherapy, so what kind of radiotherapy the patient need, whether we need to irradiate the nodes of the patient, whether we need to add chemotherapy for this patient, whether we need immunotherapy for this patient. So what is the outcome of this treatment? Okay, so whether this treatment will reduce the recurrence for this patient, whether this treatment will increase the quality of life of the patient. Well, of course, a lot of this radiotherapy or chemotherapy treatments, cancer treatment, they have a lot of side effects, significant side effects, which reduce the quality of life of the patient. So the AI can help in determining which is the best treatment, which will result in the best tumor control, and at the same time will result in the best quality of life of these patients. Okay, so all these encompassing the whole spectrum of cancer care for these patients, from the diagnosis to the treatment to the aftercare of this patient. So all these can be incorporated and can be optimized by using AI technology. Okay, so at least for now, we can see that how AI can reduce, can help in the diagnosis of cancer, and this will optimize optimize the management of this patient, so that patient will get the best decision, the best treatment possible. Okay, so let's look at for now we are sure that AI is already impacting every industry, including in medicine, including in radiotherapy, including in diagnostic imaging. So all these will be here to stay. So in fact, AI's role will increase in the future, so that a lot of decision will be partly helped by AI technology. So I'm sure that most of us are convinced now that a lot of benefit is associated with the introductions of AI. For the next part of this lecture, we will look at how AI models, or deep learning and machine learning models can be produced by us, and by us researchers, or by us the clinicians, or by us the radiographers, or by us the radiation therapists in the field. Or in fact, in environmental health, and also in physiotherapy. Okay, so let's look at artificial intelligence, and this is the big picture of artificial intelligence. At the timeline of artificial intelligence. So it starts in 1950s. If you remember, we always talk about how machines can beat human chess players, and so they can beat human chess players. That we can see videos of how machines can, in how can beat human in chess players or any kind of games. So that was the most interesting part in the 50s, how machine can beat human players. So as we go along, we can see a lot of this introduction of machine learning in medicine. So we can see that you use machine learning so that in this example, you can see that machine learning is used to detect spam. What type of spam, what kind of email is categorized as spam, what is a real email from a real people. So now in the 2000s, or in fact in the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, we look at the utilization of deep learning. So deep learning is now the in thing in artificial intelligence. All studies, all medical imaging or radiotherapy or visual therapy, they look at how to utilize deep learning so that we can study or we can model or predict whatever outcome better based on deep learning algorithm. Okay, so let's look at a more simpler machine learning, what I call as the paradigm for imaging. For this example, we can see that we have images. And these images need to be pre-processed, and we need to extract the information from these images. We can look at the PET image now. We can see the SUV. We can see the size. We can see the gradient. We can see the uptake of these radionuclide materials in the certain parts of the organs. We can see the intensity. So all this information can be extracted from the images automatically, okay, or with from automatically. From these images, all this information can be extracted. So what the machine now want to look at, which of this information are the most informative. So of course, you have multiple hundreds, thousands of information can be extracted from these images. You can look at the specific voxel. We can look at change over time. All these are information. As I mentioned earlier, all these images will provide a massive amount of data. So it is important for the machine to determine which of these information are the best to predict or to determine whether the tumor is malignant or benign, or whether there are actually tumors, whether there are specific type of tumors. And so that is what we call as a study of radiogenomics. So the machine need to know which of these thousands and thousands of information are the most informative. So the machine will work on that and classify all these information are required to determine whether the patient has malignant cancer or whether that is just a benign tumor. Okay, so the machine will classify all this information into benign or malignant. Okay, so based on this information, a future patient can be fed into this model or this algorithm, so that the future patient can be future patient images. We can predict whether that the patient has a benign tumor or malignant cancer. Okay, so this is how the process involved in producing a usable model, AI model or machine learning model, so that in the future these models can be used to predict or to determine the probability of malignancy in a patient. Okay, so we can see now there are a lot of processes involved before a model can be produced. So from our own work, we look at whether by looking at the images, by looking at the dose distribution in the images, we can determine or I call it we can determine whether the patient in the future will have urinary symptoms associated with the treatment radiotherapy, for example. Okay, so we can see that a lot of these machine learning models can produce improved accuracy in predicting the outcome of the treatment. Okay, so yeah, so based on this, I can safely say that a lot of these machine learning algorithms do have some do provide additional accuracy to the prediction of whatever outcome that we are interested in. Okay, so now let's look at another study. Sorry, I didn't put in the reference here. Another study looking at whether we can have models based on detection of different type of cancers. They look at different data set from colon, melanoma, liver, lung. So they can predict whether the patient has cancer based on this information. The accuracy is quite good too. Okay, except for breast, which has low accuracy for this particular data set. All this can be used, all this paradigm, and including artificial neural network, decision tree, support vector machine, Bayesian network, all this can be used to produce models which can predict the outcome of interest. The outcome interest can be survival of the patient, can be the local recurrence, can be the change of quality of life for this patient. So all these can be models based on the data set that we have and the machine learning algorithm that we have. Okay, so these are possible ways of how we can utilize or produce models, artificial intelligence models based on the data. Okay, in more recent years, instead of using machine learning, now the most popular, the most studied, what I call it, paradigm is by using deep learning. You can see here we have input data. It can be images, it can be clinical data. All these are put into a machine which will look at the structures, look at the differences in gradient, look at the voxel intensity, look at the all these extra information features, and they end up with fully connected layers of deep learning, so that this is the final models which they will come out with a final models with the best accuracy and the best sensitivity and the best specificity, okay, for the diagnosis or for the decision making. So all this happen in the machine itself. So we are not really sure what is happening inside, but in the end, they can produce a very accurate models based on this machine learning, based on this deep learning paradigm. So if you're interested in deep learning and machine learning, we can see a lot of some differences between these two. Okay, so as we talk now, we can see that there are some differences, major differences between deep learning and machine learning. So the most important one is that we do not need to understand the best features in deep learning. you can see here from the image. So these steps are not required in deep learning. These 3 steps are not required in deep learning. So we don't need to pre-process the images. We don't need to extract the features, and we don't need to determine the best features. So the machine will do all this work behind the scene in the the black box of computer. So the end product is we have a very accurate models, even without knowing what is happening with the models. Okay, so we can see a lot some other differences in deep learning and machine learning. Okay, so should go faster because I think my time is about to run out. Okay, so if you look at the breast cancer prognosis prediction, whether the patient has good prognosis, so we need to look at the gene expression data. We have a lot of features on images, and all these can be inputted into the deep learning algorithm, and we can produce a good prognostic model. And so one way of seeing this is combining different data type and assemble them in a method, an efficient way to improve human breast cancer prognosis prediction. Because I'm running out of time, I should just go to the challenges and future of AI. So one challenge is to look to produce accurate and validated models. So we need to overcome this human trust barriers, because a lot of physicians, a lot of clinicians do not believe AI. So we need to build this trust, and by producing the most accurate with validated models, AI models. So another challenge is the concern in the privacy, because a lot of this information are coming from patients. So we are very worried about the invasion of patient privacy. Another thing is the quality of the artificial intelligence. So we need to input the new information so that the quality can be improved. So if a machine make errors, we have some kind of backup so that the errors will not result in the disastrous effect to the patient. And I want to also emphasize that there's a lot of in radiology, there's a lot of implementation of AIs for all. So in the future, we have a research topic in AI. We look at different deep learning models. We have validation of these models. We have prospective implementation of these models. And so these are what are currently actively being researched. And I will end with this statement by Eric Topol. Probably you can read this. While I thank you all for your for your attention. I would thank the organizers for inviting me. I can see I'm quite enthusiastic in discussing this. So hopefully my talk is beneficial for all of you. And if you have any questions, you probably you can email me by looking at by email me. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. I'm sorry for taking your time, too much of your time. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties too. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Dr. Azmi, for highlighting the role of artificial intelligence in the field of cancer. Dear audience, we apologize for the technical glitch with Dr. Azmi's slides. Once again, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Sri Kumar Chakravarti to present the Certificate of Appreciation. Prof, your mic is muted.
Thank you, Ms. Sonia, and thank you, Dr. Noor Azrul. That was a very interesting talk on how we are actually using AI for cancers, and that's what is already being done in many countries. And in the future, more and more is yet to come. And your talk has been very interesting. And once again, on behalf of MAHSA University, we would like to offer you our Certificate of Appreciation for your contribution as a keynote speaker today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Professor Sri Kumar. Dear participants, please do join the parallel session at the end of the session. I must say that was very insightful session on all our different subfields under allied health sciences. Thank you once again to all our highly respectable keynote speakers. Before we come to an end of our live session this morning, we would like to share with you a brief video on the lighter side of students' activities at the Faculty of Health Sciences. Besides academic activities, our students also participate in various extracurricular activities that enrich their student experience. That includes student mobility activities as compiled in the videos you are about to view. Please enjoy. Thank you to our very talented guest students from partner institutions who participated in immersion program at the Faculty of Health Sciences. Much appreciation and thank you to the team for video preparation. With this, we have come to the end of our live session. We will commence respectively to the parallel sessions. Dear participants, kindly join the appropriate link sent to each one of you by your respective department. We will be back here at 4:45 p.m. for the prize giving and closing ceremony. Thank you and enjoy your upcoming sessions.